No visible symptoms, no runny nose, just a head full of darkness. No fever or rash, no fracture or sprain, just a longing for something unable to explain. This post by an unknown author captures the very essence of why we're gathered here this evening. Guest speaker, panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I am Tavia Rigon, and mine is a profound pleasure and privilege to be your chairperson for this evening. Under the theme, Let's Talk Mental Health. To guide, direct, and inform this evening's proceedings, we invite our church secretary, Deacon Joan Ferguson, to invoke the presence of the Lord, after which she will provide our welcome. Deacon Joan?
Let us go to God in prayer. Almighty God, our kind and gracious Father, we are mindful only through your enabling we are here this evening. And so in humility and with grateful hearts, we bow in your holy, awesome presence. We give you thanks for your enduring, unconditional love and faithfulness. We thank you, Lord, that through the enabling of your Holy Spirit, this church embarked on a mission to raise awareness of mental health in our churches and communities. We pray your guidance and blessing on this evening's mental health seminar. We pray asking your blessing on all of us gathered here in the sanctuary of the Calvary Baptist Church, Corinaldi Avenue, Montego Bay, and those joining us on our social media platforms, YouTube and Facebook. Continue to reward with your blessing all those who have contributed to make this evening's event a reality. Our multimedia team, always willing to go beyond the call of duty, to ensure the message goes beyond the walls of this church. Our pastor, Reverend Michael Shimhue, whose support for this area of ministry has been unwavering. Grant him your protection on the road today, as in obedience to you, he goes to serve elsewhere. Bless and lead all our members who will be actively participating in this evening's event. Father, we cannot adequately express our gratitude to you for blessing us and blessing our country with dedicated healthcare professionals, many overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated by even those who are totally dependent on them for survival. Thank you, Lord, for these mental health professionals present here with us this evening. Our guest speaker, Dr. Janine Morris, our panelist, Dr. Charmaine Garwood, and Mrs. Takia Brown Lawrence. We are mindful that after a full day's work, they could have chosen to go home to family and well-deserved rest and relaxation. Instead, they have chosen to be here. Father, reward them with good health, energy, and the motivation to carry on the tasks you have assigned them. The task to take care of the least among us, society's most vulnerable, the many times lonely, the hopeless, the confused and anxious, trying to navigate their way through this life's maze of human journey. This, Lord, we pray you will keep us attuned to your leading. Keep us focused, and may your calming presence truly embolden us to take advantage of the question and answer session. Help us to forget shyness and inhibitions, so we will leave here better informed, with greater confidence and commitment to serve those who need us most. Lord, we pray you continue to bless the efforts of this church as we continue on our mission to raise awareness on mental health. All this we ask through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. I see on the agenda provided by our chairperson, I do extend the welcome. And indeed, brothers and sisters, friends all, a warm welcome to you. I trust that although some people's steps might be slow getting here, the rains that came earlier did not dampen the spirit. So we can expect more to come, because this promises to be a very informative afternoon. I want to express our warm welcome to those who are joining us by social media and YouTube. I am delighted to know we are having a mental health seminar this evening. On my way here, I said, you know, our God is a God whose time is always right. We should have had this seminar in June. It was postponed. Now it is so timely. We have, since that time, lived through the experiences of Hurricane Beryl. Certainly, all of us have been affected in one way or the other, and we do know people who have been affected. Some of us, especially those with younger children, have found the children traumatized. Many of us parents anxious, because we have been thrown back into an era, even for a short period of time, when we are without electricity, without some of the basic services, and all these have worn on our mental health. So this is a very timely seminar. I pray that others will make use of the opportunity to be here. Now, I want to express my gratitude to our members who have faithfully turned up. And if we have joining us via the social media platforms, anyone who join us who are not members of the church, but because of the invitation extended, we would like you to indicate so we can acknowledge at some time your presence. And anyone who is here from another church or coming because of the advertisement they have seen, a very warm welcome to you. And we trust that the experience this evening will be rewarding. Our two ladies sitting in front, I want you to know that we do appreciate your presence with us. A third lady is supposed to be joining us later, and she is Dr. Garwood. We look forward to her presence. So we have Dr. Morris and Dr. Brown-Lawrence. And Mrs. Brown-Lawrence, a health educator. We want you to know we come hungry for information. And as I ask the Lord to take our shyness, that we can ask questions, because we all have questions. And I would be remiss if I don't mention our hard-working coordinator for the Mental Health Committee, Sister Tavia Regan. Certainly, that applause doesn't go for Tavia alone. I want it to go also for our visitors. Let us hear that warm Calvary welcome applause. I told Sister Tavia I'm going to make notes, and I'm going to write, because I know my faults. I know my weaknesses. I can be long-winded. Time is valuable. We have so much to learn and so much to get involved with. And so, please, enjoy the hospitality, ignore the empty chairs, and you'll have an appreciative audience. So again, welcome and thank you very much for being here. And to our faithful Calvarians, I expected no less than the faithful faces I've seen. Thank you. Enjoy the evening. Over to you, Sister Tavia. So we'll talk mental health.
Thank you very much, Deacon Joan. The Calvary Circuit of Baptist Churches mission statement. The mission of God for the world today, and no doubt for Montego Bay and all of St. James, through the Calvary Circuit of Baptist Churches, is to engage in acts of goodness, godliness, righteousness, and holiness with environment, individuals, and institutions. By so doing, it is our prayer that God's vision for this world becoming new heavens and a new earth, and individuals becoming and being very Christ will be achieved. As the agency and agents of God's salvific plan, we believe that the earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. We further believe that the institutions of the world are not able nor capable to satisfy all the needs of humankind at any one point in time, at any one geographic locale. This branch of the Church of the Triune God has therefore, over time, been collaborating, cooperating, and partnering with such institutions of the world to accomplish God's vision and mission for the world today. Churches have therefore been hosting health fairs, blood collection centers, dental teams, surgical teams, ophthalmology teams, disaster awareness and response teams, to name a few. To name a few of the ways in which the church has been working with state agency and agents in making the world a better place. Talking about mental health is one of the vitally important and urgent ways in which God's vision and mission for God's world, which is our world, will be achieved as we work at loving God with our entire being and our neighbors as ourselves. And here we are this evening with what is our first session in a series of our quarterly seminars on mental health. Our objective through these seminars is to raise awareness of mental health in our churches, communities, and our country. Our hope is that through these talks, we will be able to A, bring into focus the severity of the issues surrounding mental health in our country. B, educate persons about mental health conditions, symptoms, available treatment options, and supporting infrastructure. And C, to correct misinformation by sharing accurate information. Our talk for this evening will be done by our guest speaker, Dr. Janine Morris, psychiatrist with the Western Regional Health Authority. I now invite Sister Marjorie Hall to introduce our guest speaker for the evening, after which Dr. Janine will share with us what she has prepared. Sister Marjorie.
Ladies and gentlemen, It is indeed my pleasure to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Janine Morris. Dr. Morris hails from a beautiful island of Barbados, yet she is proud to call Jamaica her second home, having resided here for the past 14 years. Her journey in the field of medicine began at the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies, where she earned her Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, MBBS degree in 2013. Dr. Morris continued her pursuit of excellence by completing the Doctor of Medicine DM Psychiatry program at the University Hospital of the West Indies in 2022. Her thesis, entitled An Exploration of the Relationship Between Depression and Pain, received special recognition and was awarded the Best DM Psychiatry Thesis across all UWI campuses for that year, a testament to her dedication and innovative approach in the field. Currently, Dr. Morris serves as a psychiatrist for the Western Regional Health Authority, overseeing the management of both inpatient and outpatient psychiatric services across the parishes of St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover, and Trelawney. Her leadership skills have also been recognized through her role as acting head of the Department of Psychiatry. In addition to her clinical responsibilities, Dr. Morris is deeply committed to education. She teaches the clinical psychiatry rotation to undergraduate medical students at the All-American Institute of Medical Sciences. Her passion for mental health extends beyond clinical and classroom as she serves as the treasurer of the Jamaica Psychiatric Association. She has played an integral role in the planning and execution of numerous mental health conferences during Mental Health Week in Jamaica. Dr. Morris is a staunch advocate for mental health, with a particular focus on reducing stigma and promoting patient advocacy. Her commitment to these causes is evident in all aspects of her work and community involvement. Outside of her professional life, Dr. Morris values her own mental well-being. She finds joy in nature walks, visits to the beach, traveling, and trying new cuisine, all of which reflects her appreciation for life's simple pleasures. We are honored to have Dr. Morris with us today, and we look forward to the insights she will share with us. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Janine Morris.
Good evening, church. Okay, I'm hoping that my presentation will come up, and I would like to, in the meantime, thank you for offering to have me come and speak with you on this topic that is obviously very near and dear to my heart, because I've dedicated my life and my career towards it. And additionally, that welcome was very warm and lovely, so thank you so much. I hope that I can do the presentation justice, and I look forward to your participation through the asking and answering of questions. 1 minute. No problem. Okay, so this is All right, so this evening I've been asked to talk about some of the mental health challenges that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis in Jamaica specifically. So my presentation, just giving you an overview of what you should expect today. My presentation covers some of the more common mental illnesses that I see, and I'm sure Nurse Brown Lawrence will share those sentiments. as well as a few statistics. I'm trying not to bore you with all of the details, but we'll go through, and as I said at the end, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just the definition from the WHO, which basically says that mental illness is recognized as one of the most pressing public health issues. So it is something that is quite significant and highlighted as something that, apart from all the other conditions that we know of, high blood pressure, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and so on, mental illness is of severe concern. And as a result of mental illnesses, there has been an increase in the morbidity and mortality, which means simply death, dying, along with people having severe illnesses as a result. Next slide, please. Right, so what we like to talk about really is mental health and mental wellness as opposed to mental illness. So we're going to try to, in our vocabulary, when we speak, we're going to speak about mental wellness as opposed to mental illness. So definition here, mental health is a state of mental well-being, and this well-being enables people to cope with life's challenges. So every day we experience challenges. From the time we were born, we entered into a world of stress. You know, the baby is in the uterus, nice environment, the right temperature, close and snuggled to its mother, and then it's squeezed through this narrow space, out into this cold world, bright lights, people shouting and talking over them, you know, and that's the level of stress that we encounter from the time we are born. So stress is a part of life. So mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables you to cope with the stresses of life. So stress is inevitable. We will always have stress. There is no stress-free life that exists on this earth. So we need to be able to cope with stress. And of course, having some level of mental wellness is integral for you to be able to do all the things that you need to do throughout life. Build meaningful relationships with people, you know, be functional at work, spend time with your children. Everything that you do requires you to have mental wellness, because in order to function well, both mind and body have to be functioning together. Next slide, please. Right, so I just also wanted to highlight here that it is a basic human right, just as we all have the right to clean water, the right to electricity. I'm putting in a plug for JPS for those of us who don't have current right now. We have the right to being in loving and caring relationships. We have the right to good health care. We have the right to have good infrastructure in the country in which we live, and so on. Mental health is a fundamental human right. So it is something of significant importance that is due to all, regardless of class, color, creed, everything, you know, religious denominations, etc. It's important that you realize that it's a fundamental human right. Next slide, please. Right, so in terms of depression, the slides are a bit distorted, and I hope that the online community is able to see it. If not, I will share the slides that they can be accessed at any point in time later once my presentation is finished. So I just wanted to cue you into some of the symptoms of the more common mental illnesses. So I'm going to speak about depression. I'm going to speak about anxiety, because those are quite common, and especially since we've gone through a pandemic and we've also gone through burial, Hurricane Beryl. Therefore, I feel it necessary to highlight those, and I'll touch briefly on psychosis, which you'll see as the presentation goes on. So, depression. What is depression? How do we diagnose depression? So I just want to give you an idea. Now, I don't want any of you in the audience to be self-diagnosing, because it's important to take all these things into context, and you need to speak with a medical professional before you go on ticking these things and saying, oh my goodness, I have this. No, please seek professional help first. So, depression is diagnosed by 5 of 9 symptoms, and you have to have had these symptoms for a period of 2 weeks or more for most days. However, there are 2 significant symptoms that you must have, and those 2 symptoms are you must either have had a depressed mood or loss of pleasure, which we call anhedonia, which means usually the things that you like to do, you really are no longer interested. So, for example, you always come to church on Sundays, and all of a sudden you feel like, I just can't do it. I'm not interested anymore. So it either has to be that or the depressed mood, which is a general sadness that persists throughout the day, most days of the week, and as I said, for a period of 2 weeks. So some of the other symptoms of depression that we tend to look for, and I'll start with what would be at the bottom of my slide, thoughts of wanting to harm yourself. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, as opposed to speaking about it further down, is that we have seen a significant increase in the number of suicides across the island. Additionally, in my home country of Barbados, we have also seen an increase. So I would say, based on the research, significantly the Caribbean literature, there has been an increase in suicides, and that's something that would take another presentation to go into because of its significance and, to discuss the statistics. But thoughts of death or wanting to harm yourself is another significant feature of depression, and it is something that requires that you seek help urgently should you have any of those thoughts. Another symptom is decreased energy. So some of the time you may feel, lackluster, very tired all the time. In fact, you may be sleeping excessively, and there may be the opposite, where you may not be able to get any sleep at all because you're awake. Things are constantly running through your mind about maybe all the bills that you have to pay, or the fact that your roof has blown off with Beryl, or children's school fees, that type of thing. So decreased energy is one of the things that you need to look out for, as well as sleep, whether too much or too little. Additionally, there may be appetite changes when you are depressed. So you may have little to no appetite, or you may have a big, huge, rambunctious appetite where you're eating significantly more than you normally would, almost binge eating, just eating as much as possible. So that's something that you additionally need to look out for. There is also usually a reduction or an inability to concentrate on things. So you may be at work, you're trying to complete a task, and you recognize that you just can't concentrate. It's just taking you, a task that would normally take you 5 minutes is now taking you 35 minutes. Additionally, if you're at home and you're watching the television or you're watching the news, reading a book, you may find that you have to read the same line over and over again, or you're not able to concentrate so well. So that's another feature that you have to look out for. Additionally, your movements, and usually this is observed by those around you as opposed to you observing it yourself. Your movements may be either slowed down which we call psychomotor retardation, or they may be sped up, and someone will say to you, but why are you moving around like that? Why do you look that way? Usually it's your family members or close friends, people within close proximity that point it out to you. You may additionally, as I said, because of that, have very low energy levels. So these are things that you need to look out for, and I'm just highlighting so that you can have an idea. In addition, there may be feelings of worthlessness, hopelessness, and usually feelings of guilt, unwarranted guilt. So there's nothing for you to feel guilty about really when you check the facts, but for some reason you feel guilty, or me. So just remember that you need to have 5 of 9 of symptoms. And as I said, I'll share my slides at any point. Next slide, please. Right, so this, I just wanted to put this here for those who enjoy technical and intricate details of things. This is the Patient Health Questionnaire 9. So basically the same 9 symptoms that I just spoke about, this puts it into a validated form that we as clinicians can use to diagnose and say, yes, okay, this person has depression, yes or no. And based on your score, you're categorized into various categories of depression. So if your score is 0 to 4, you don't have, minimal symptoms. Then there's mild, moderate, moderately severe, and severe. And of course, the treatment will be catered based on the severity of the depression. Next slide, please. Right, so anxiety now. So anxiety, most of the time I've seen, based on my clinical practice, anxiety tends to come along with depression, or it tends to have preceded depression, or it comes after. So usually they kind of, come together. So with regards to anxiety now and diagnosing anxiety, it's excessive worry about things for most of the time. And this worry is difficult to control. And just as we had a time period with depression of 2 weeks, the time period for anxiety is 6 months. So it's okay to be a bit worried initially about things that may have happened, challenging things, things that might concern you. It's okay to be a bit worried initially, that's fine. But after a 6-month period, if it's affecting your function, it tends to become more serious and more something now that you need to seek medical attention for or seek assistance for. So the symptoms, generally it's 3 symptoms that you need of a list of symptoms that I've made here, which is restlessness or irritability. You just feel, you can't. You're just always restless, you're keyed up, you're on edge constantly, worrying about things. Some people may have muscle tension, so it usually tends to happen in the shoulders and neck. People may have tension headache, which is like a band-like headache, where the muscles of the head and so on, scalp, are tight. And just excessive worry that you can't seem to put aside, regardless of if you go out with your friends, someone makes a joke or whatever, you're still worrying about it. And anxiety can come along with, you can have panic symptoms as well, where you may start to sweat and your heart may start to race. You may find that you have shortness of breath or feeling as though you're being stifled, almost as though something is wrapped around your neck. You can also have anxiety associated with fear agoraphobia, which is Lord have mercy, I'm so sorry. I'm losing my words because I am anxious right now myself. Right, so you can have it with agoraphobia, which is fear of the marketplace. So some people get more anxious in spaces where there are lots of people, which is like, imagine the Saturday morning marketplace. I recently went to the market with one of my friends, one of my Jamaican friends, and it's quite a crowded space, as you can imagine. So if you were someone who had anxiety in that space, you probably would feel like, okay, I have to get out of here because I feel like I'm being stifled, almost like a claustrophobic type of feeling. So it can come along with the fear of the marketplace or without. Next slide, please. Right, so similarly to diagnosing depression, doctors love scales and charts and all of these types of things. The generalized anxiety scale is used as a tool to rate your severity of anxiety. So again, it's a similar thing where you have mild, moderate to severe, or no symptoms at all. Okay, so as I said, that's just for basic information, nothing that you need to keep in your head. So you can advance the slide for me, please. Next slide. Right, so in 2017, again, I like to speak about WHO because, you know, they're the World Health Organization, and they're the ones that collect all the statistics and so on about illnesses across the world. So in 2017, mental illness was seen as a severe illness, and it was one of the illnesses that, or one of the group of illnesses that contributed significantly to the global burden of disease. And that simply means the economic costs, because really and truly, money, people say, you know, okay, money is not everything, but when it comes to these conglomerates and determining the economic burden of disease and how much money should be put into certain things and various medications and all of that, most of the time they do an economic analysis. So if you rate high, if an illness rates highly on the global burden of disease, you know then that it is of significance because, in other words, it costs a lot of money to treat. So in Jamaica, I just wanted to include some statistics for you to see so that you could have an idea of, okay, how many people are really suffering with these things? So 3% of Jamaicans have depressive disorders and 4.1% have an anxiety disorder. So that's pretty significant when you think about it. I mean, the numbers sound small, but when you look at the population overall, you guys can do the calculation when you get home. It's a significant amount of people that are affected. Next slide, please. Right, so local studies, because there are a number of studies that are done and have been done in the past and are currently being done at the University of the West Indies, all campuses, which look obviously at mental health and the burden that it places on our society here in the Caribbean, Jamaica, and beyond. And the studies have shown that, just like the World Health Organization says, it is a large burden on our society here locally and in the region, so locally and regionally. The Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey, which is a survey that I would recommend that you go online. It's available on the Ministry of Health and Wellness's website, which I'll give you later. And it gives you in-depth statistics about, you know, what percentage of males have X or Y illness in Jamaica. And the latest one is 2017. They're currently working on an update. So we'll be able to make some comparisons as time goes on. Next slide, please. All right, so unfortunately, we as women are more predisposed to having depression and anxiety than our male counterparts. I guess they say that, the strongest battles, the hardest battles are given to the strongest soldiers. So maybe that's why, I don't know. When we get to heaven, we'll have to ask the Maker why. But this is just to show you the actual statistical values. So 3.7% of women in Jamaica have depression, and 4.3% have anxiety, compared to our male counterparts who have 2.3% for both. So in some instances, it seems as though it can be protective to be male, but as I said, the hardest battles go to the strongest soldiers. No offense to the men in the audience. Next slide, please. All right, so different age groups experience anxiety and depression at different rates. There tends to be the midlife protective period where you don't really see anxiety and depression, but you see it at extremes. So the younger population and those over 70 tend to have it more often, depression, whereas anxiety now tends to come, in the working age people. I guess you have more things to worry about than not. So again, this gives you some statistics to show that those 60 and above are more likely to have depression than the younger people, with 5.2% of Jamaicans within the 60 to 74 age group having depression, and 5% among those 75 and over. So what does that say? That we need to look out for our elderly. We also need to look out for our youth. So I'm glad that you guys have started this type of forum where you can educate, and try to share as much information as possible so that we can overcome and, not have these misconceptions, because there are a lot of misconceptions about things. People are afraid when they hear mental illness. Oh, that's a madman who eats out of the garbage, who lives on the side of the road. But no, this is not the case. So that's why I also am highlighting depression and anxiety first, because people often think, okay, depression and anxiety, they are not really mental illnesses. Patients will come in to me and say, oh, it's just a little depression that he has, doc, which sounds more palatable. But just to let you guys know that it is indeed considered a mental health condition, which, needs to be addressed urgently. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm just going to speak a little bit about psychosis now. This tends to be the one that persons are more afraid of, and I say afraid in inverted commas because there's nothing to be afraid of or fearful, just to know that it can occur to anyone at any point in time, at any age, at any given state. It doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter if you're from Barbados like me, or if you're from Jamaica. There is no discrimination for psychosis. So psychosis is a mental health condition that manifests with symptoms, as all the other mental health conditions do, because there's no blood test. People often say, well, doc, how do you know that this person has psychosis? Is there a blood test or a brain scan or, some type of chemical investigation that you can do? No, usually it's a diagnosis after we've ruled out all the other medical causes. So, number of symptoms that present. Hallucinations. So that is experiencing a stimulus in a different way at some times, or it can be perceiving a stimulus that's not even there. So, for example, you can experience it in all 5 of your senses. So, persons may report that they're hearing voices talking to them. So they look around, they're hearing someone talking to them, they look around, there's no one else in the room. Look through the window, there's no one outside. So where's this voice coming from? Or they may experience unusual tastes in their mouth or unusual smells. Maybe you start to smell something and you look around, there's nowhere for that smell to be coming from. Touch, so the sense of touch. So we've done hearing, we've done sense of smell, we've done touch. Of course, there's taste, which we've done as well, and sight. So people may see things that are not there. So somebody may say, but I see a gentleman sitting in the chair there in the middle. He has on a red shirt. You don't see him? Okay, so then you know, if other people are unable to see that, you know that that's usually a hallucination that they are having. Now, I know in the Caribbean, some people believe in duppy and seeing spirits and those types of things. So there's like a thin line between. It usually depends on, the socially accepted norms. So with regards to delusions now, delusions are fixed false beliefs that are not amenable to change, and usually we have to look at the social norms of the particular population. So for instance, in Haiti, where voodoo is practiced, if somebody's talking to you about spiritual warfare and so on from Haiti, you kind of tend to be less heavy with the pen to diagnose schizophrenia because that's part of their culture. Additionally, disorganized speech and disorganized behavior. So disorganized, it just means that you're not doing things as you would normally do, or you're talking foolishness. That's most of the time what the patients would come in and say, Doc, he's just talking pure foolishness. I don't understand a word he's saying. Anything he's saying don't make sense, and he's doing pure foolishness. He put ketchup inside of the juice, and him go in at the bathroom and him eat the soap, and him use the deodorant and him rub it all over him head. So, they're just doing things that are not in keeping with what they should be doing. And another part of psychosis, generally with schizophrenia, we see that persons have what we call negative symptoms, and that's basically not talking as much as they usually do, not moving around as much, kind of withdrawn from people, and so on. So I've put a number of the disorders that can come along with psychosis. Anxiety and depression, once severe enough, can lead to a psychotic episode. And schizophrenia is a psychotic disorder. We also have schizoaffective disorder, but I'm not here to go into all of that because that's something for another presentation. It's important to also note that substance use can precipitate a psychotic episode. So that's concerning, especially concerning with all the research that we have been looking at recently, where we see the significant impact that marijuana has, especially on the developing brain. And we have recently, we would say recently, but it's been a few years now since we have decriminalized marijuana. So now we're saying, okay, yes, go ahead, smoke, do what you need to do. You won't get charged for this just one spliff, it's fine. But have we really thought about the impact that it has on those who are predisposed to psychotic disorders or those that have a developing brain? And interestingly enough, the brain does not develop fully until about the age of 25. For females, it's usually age of 20, but for males it's about 25. And mostly in our population, men are the ones that tend to smoke marijuana more often than females. So imagine your brain is not developed fully yet. You're adding this substance to your brain that can alter the brain permanently. And, it's something significant that we really need to think about. So that's just a thought point that I put in there. Other substances, of course, can precipitate a psychotic episode. Alcohol, Molly, mushrooms. I mean, we've been hearing a lot about psilocybin and all these different mushrooms that people have been using to treat depression and anxiety. But of course, these things have to be done under clinical watch. You can't just go and self-medicate with these things. Next slide, please. Right, so just to give you some statistics again with regards to the Jamaican context, it is estimated that in Jamaica 2.9 per 10,000 people, 2.09, per 10,000 people have psychosis. So that can give you an idea. So you can think about that. From day to day and time to time when you're at church in the congregation, you can work it out and know that people, maybe you may be the next person, I may be the next person to have a psychotic episode, so we try not to discriminate. So in terms of, in Jamaica, schizophrenia accounts for 80% of the psychotic episodes in the nation. So that's just to give you an idea. So schizophrenia is one of the biggest illnesses that gives or is responsible for the psychotic symptoms seen in our population. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, it places a burden on persons' lives. I mean, imagine you may have seen several videos on social media with people who have had psychotic episodes, and I will speak about one that stands out in my mind with a lady at the airport. I'm not sure if you would have seen it or heard about it. It was all over the news and so on, who she had a psychotic episode. She ended up taking all of her clothes off. She urinated on the floor of the airport. The security was trying to intervene. Other people were trying to intervene. People were filming and laughing and so on. Imagine if that was you. How would you feel, right? Imagine if that was your sister, your brother, your mother, your father. You wouldn't feel good about it. So we need to be a bit more sensitive towards these things. A lot of the times when persons are in an active psychotic episode, they're not aware really of what's happening because they've lost touch with reality. And in losing touch with reality, you may do things that obviously you're not aware at the time that you're doing. Sometimes relatives record patients during an active psychosis, and then once the patient is admitted to hospital and are treated and, as they say, come back to themselves, and they show them the video, they say, no way, this can't be me. What? I did that? I stripped naked? I went in the doghouse? I, was outside sleeping in the car park somewhere? They oftentimes are quite embarrassed about some of the things that they do. So just be mindful when you see someone acting a bit out of the norm, if you can, and within reason, once they're not a threat to you or to anyone else, if they're not armed with a weapon or what have you, try to be sensitive in terms of the recording and the social media and so on, because it can affect people significantly and, their futures. I will give another example of a patient that I have currently who was in law school. She had a psychotic episode while in class. People, of course, recorded, people stigmatized her and so on. Nobody wanted to talk to her. And a very brilliant young lady, and of course, she ended up dropping out of law school because of that, discrimination and feeling so fearful and worried about what her colleagues would have to say about her. And she could have probably significantly contributed to the dearth that we have in our legal system of lawyers, because as you can imagine, cases take very long. We don't have enough lawyers or doctors, so that's something significant. So you have to think about it like that. How do these things impact on a person's life, not only them, but the society at large? Because there it is, we could have had an attorney that we probably won't have unless, she changes her mind, which I'm hoping she will. All right, so next slide, please. These are just some statistics that you can read about. All right, so again, I spoke about this a bit. As you can see, this gentleman here has a spliff in his mouth. So again, substances contribute. So next slide, please. Next slide. Right, okay. So, additionally, psychotic illnesses are associated with an early death. So, early morbidity and mortality. And that's twofold. The research shows that it's part of the illness itself, and some of the treatments that we use can cause some of these metabolic problems, such as weight gain, development of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and so on and so forth. So it is important for us, even though with regards to genetics, because you can't change your genes. You don't choose who your mother and father are. They give birth to you, and whatever genes you get, you get. So it's kind of like, okay, these are the cards you've been dealt with. But there are other factors that can contribute to your mental wellness, which we call modifiable factors. So you have to try to ensure that you modify them to the best of your ability. And we'll speak about that, I'm sure, on the panel when the questions come. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's important to recognize in all of this, with regards to psychosis, it doesn't only stand for psychosis, it just happens to fall in here well for the presentation. But remember, everything is intertwined. There's really no black and white. There's shades of gray in between. And we have to remember the fact that most of the persons who are suffering with mental illness, well, should I say most? Anecdotally, I wouldn't say most, but let's say some of the persons who suffer with mental illnesses have a good support system, family, friends, colleagues, and so on, that help to care for them, especially when there is a significant, when they're more severe in their illness, and when there's a significant burden of disease on the person and the family. So these caregivers, oftentimes, they're giving of their time, ensuring that people take medication, taking patients to clinic, and so on. You as a caregiver can get pretty burnt out, and this stands for all types of caregiving for the elderly, caregiving for children. All caregivers at some point need a break. So again, I just wanted to highlight that caregivers also have mental health, and they need to be, since it's a fundamental human right, they need to be given breaks as well when they feel as though, okay, this is becoming a bit heavy for me. Just take some time out and say, okay, find someone else that can assist or stand in for that clinic appointment, and you go and do something for yourself, even if it's just for half a day or something like that. It's important that the caregivers care for themselves too. Next slide, please. All right, so substance use disorders, that's another large topic that I would, as I said here, topic for another presentation. I've only highlighted alcohol and marijuana here, but there are a number of other substances and things that you may not even consider, like coffee. A lot of us drink coffee every morning, can't do without our coffee. Our hands are shaking if we don't drink the coffee. All of that can be described as a use disorder. Smoking cigarettes, use of tobacco. People tend to mix their cigarettes mix their marijuana with grabba, which is tobacco. So, we need to be aware of all these other things. And as I said, that's a topic for another day, because that's a whole new road that we're going to go down with another set of statistics and another set of, okay, what's the position in Jamaica versus worldwide, and the various entities and the non-governmental organizations that people need to reach out to should they have a problem, and so on. So another day I will come and I will present to you on the substance use disorders so we can have a full discussion on that. Next slide, please. Okay, so we do have a number of challenges, and as we know, I've spoken about the stigma with regards to mental illnesses. So stigma really is the cultural attitudes towards mental illnesses. So as I said, we think the madman down the street who him a nyam out of the garbage can and him look rough, him look rugged, him sleep roadside, is it that he may have been unfortunate and had schizophrenia, and his family used to tie him up or lock him in a bedroom for all of his life? He never went to school, so unfortunately he's unable to read or write. Then the mother who used to look after him all the while, she passes away, so there's nobody really to look after him, and then he ends up on the street. We have to think, why did that person end up in that position? As opposed to just, why don't move? We need to be a bit more compassionate with regards to these persons in terms of stigma. But again, stigma is as a result of us fearing things, because we tend to stigmatize that we don't know much about. So it's easy to be afraid of things that you don't know, which is why I'm happy that you all have started this mental health discussion and are opening it to persons that are here and present, as well as those online, so that they can get the information. I know that Thursday evening after work may be difficult for you to come physically, but at least if you're at home preparing a meal or so on, you can log on and listen, So it's important for us to be educated on these things. Now, with regards to the infrastructure, I just wanted to give you an idea of what we currently have in Jamaica. And these came directly from my boss, Dr. Goldburn. So, 116 adult mental health clinics exist on island. 116. That may sound like a lot, but it's not enough. Now, they have 17 outpatient clinics in general hospitals across the island, and there are 23 child and adolescent mental health clinics. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of barriers with regards to economics. As I mentioned, yes, money, the love of money is the root of all evil, but money is necessary to get things done in this society. So it's quite prohibitive for us at times because there's just not enough money to do the things that we need to do. Not enough money to buy the medications that we need to treat the illnesses. Not enough money to pay the staff that work tirelessly. Not enough money to just have the infrastructure itself, the buildings where we're going to hold these clinics to facilitate everyone. And something that has been highlighted and is being addressed currently in the Mental Health Act review is insurance coverage. I'm not sure if you guys know or not, those persons who go to doctors for mental health problems, generally insurance companies don't cover them, you know. Some insurance companies now, I notice, have been covering, which is good, and we applaud them, but this is something more recent, whereas in the past, it would have been quite difficult for people to get health insurance for those purposes. And then, you know, life insurance. I've started to look into life insurance policies because I realized, okay, I need to probably one day buy a home and I would need a life insurance policy. So, you know, you have to fill in all of those things. They want to know your blood type. They want to know your mother's maiden name, your grandfather's, you know, the height and weight. They want to know all these in-depth things about your life. And having a mental health challenge is one of the things that may prohibit you from getting a life insurance policy. So those are things that we as the stakeholders and persons in society that can make an impact, we need to think about those things and change those things, because there's so many people struggling with these things. Why should I be prohibited from, you know, getting coverage because of something that I've been predisposed to genetically, and because of the stresses of the world I'm now experiencing? That oftentimes is something that is out of our hands, but we can make a change. In terms of the distribution now, all these clinics that you see and so on, rural versus urban. So some places, as you can imagine, there's no transport. There's no roads to get to the clinics and so on. And I'm going to speak about the community mental health services, where our lovely mental health nurse, Brown Lawrence, can give you more information, where we actually go out into the community to see our patients, our clients. And that can be a significant burden as well, economically, because oftentimes our buses have to drive on roads that are not good, or there's no road at all. So mental health officer, psychiatric nursing aide, and other nurses have to get out and walk far distances up hills and down valleys to get to patients that are in need. And trust me, they've been doing it. Nurse Brown Lawrence can tell you they've been doing it tirelessly and doing a good job as well. So next slide, please. Right, so what are some of the strategies that the government has come up with to help with this mental health fight? They've come up with a lot of things that you may or may not know about. And it's important for you to know so that you're aware, so that you're equipped. Because oftentimes people come to church members, especially deacons and, you know, so on in the church, for advice. So I want for you to pay special attention now to all of these initiatives so that you can guide people to where they need to go for the help that they need. So the government has done a lot in terms of mental health promotion. There is more to be done, but again, we have to have the money to do it. So There is the National Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Hotline. The number which I will share with you at the end, I've got a slide with all of the things that you need to write down and keep close. There's also the You Matter chat line, which is, and these are 24-hour helplines that anyone can call, as I said, 24 hours, so that means any time of day, whether it's a public holiday or not, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, any day you can call for help. There's the helpline of the National Council on Drug Abuse. That's for our substance users. There's also Safe Spot, and there is Rise Life Management Services. Additionally, we have started, and I say we because I'm part of the mental health campaigning as well, and part of the Ministry of Health because that's who employs me. So they have started the Do Your Share campaign as well as the Wellness Bench. I'm not sure if anyone here or online has heard about the Wellness Bench. It's basically creating what we call a safe space for persons to talk about mental health. And there are wellness benches across the island for persons to have that safe space. Next slide, please. So here I am on the wellness bench with Dr. Goldburn, who is our Director of Mental Health Services in the Ministry of Health for the island. So this was at our mental health, this was in October for our Mental Health Week conference, and this was in Kingston. So they had wellness benches around that the mental health practitioner, whether it be one of our mental health officers or a psychiatrist like myself or one of the doctors that works in psychiatry, would sit on the bench and anyone could come over and talk to us about anything that affected their mental health. So that's kind of the idea of the wellness bench. So we're just sitting on the bench. I actually went over to talk to him about my own mental health. And then the photographer said, oh, let me get a picture with you guys. So there you go. So next slide, please. All right, so again, there are other government initiatives that you need to be aware of. There's the National School Mental Health Literacy Program, and that is a drive, as it says, School Mental Health Literacy Program, where clinicians and others in mental health have gone into the schools to promote mental wellness, you know, try to normalize having sad days or having days where things are a bit off. If you're a bit withdrawn, normalize it's okay, get help, go talk to someone. So there has been a lot of school infiltration from our services, and oftentimes when something like a crisis happens, for example, when they had the unfortunate suicide of a Montego Bay high school girl, which was quite recently, you know, people will reach out to our department and say, can you come with the psychologist to give a talk and so on. But what we want to do is encourage those things to happen before the crisis comes. So we want to do prevention, because they say prevention is better than cure. So we want to do preventative, you know, school tours to say, okay, if you're feeling this way, reach out, let us know. It's difficult, but we're here. They also have initiated the PM Plus program, which is the Problem Management Plus program. And this is a community-based initiative in which persons in the community, a point person in the community, is trained by a mental health professional to offer support to other community members. So example, Mrs. Brown down the road, everyone knows Mrs. Brown. You know, she's someone that you can talk to. She's someone that is responsible and so on, you can point to her. We've been also using or going into our barber shops and hair salons. You know, that's somewhere where people tend to talk about everything. You take a trip to the salon and you get to know everything that's going on in the community. But, you know, we're trying to let it be a space where you can go into your barber, and while you're getting a trim, you can say, you know, man, I'm having this problem at work, or boy, I'm having this relationship issue, or geez, it's very difficult to deal with these teenage children. I'm trying to teach this youth the right way, but I'm just listen, you know. So we are training persons in those areas that are used by persons in the community frequently, for them to be able to, you know, offer some guidance. And then if it's bigger than them, they can say, okay, this is above me, but I can tell you where to go. Speak to so-and-so, go to Dr. so-and-so, you know, that type of thing. So these are some good initiatives that the Ministry of Health and Wellness has undertaken. And of course, they're still working on them. It's ongoing. It's not something that just happens and then stops. We're hoping that it will continue for generations. I hope that when I am old and retiring in Silver Sands, because I really want to have a beachfront property there, that these initiatives are still ongoing and I can watch TVJ in my rocking chair and say, okay, great, it's still continuing. Next slide, please. All right, so there's also policy. I have spoken briefly on it, but policy is important because all of these things happen as a result of policy. So policies are put in place for us to follow just so that we have guidelines, because without rules and guidelines, there will be anarchy and chaos. There needs to be guidelines to follow so that we know, okay, well, based on research, the evidence shows that this is the best thing to do, and this is what we're going to do. So the National Mental Health Policy, currently the Jamaica Mental Health Act, is what we use as our policy manual for treating persons with mental health conditions. And it has various different sections. It's, of course, a legal document with all of that legal vernacular that can be difficult to understand, but it basically governs how we do things. And the last time it was amended was 1997. That was quite some time ago. So we need to update that a bit and change some of the policies because the world is changing and has changed. Additionally, I just wanted to point out again the community mental health services. I wish you could have seen it on the slide, but this is what the community mental health team looks like. This is a whole group. However, most of the time on the bus, there's probably just 5 people, sometimes maybe 4, 6 the maximum. So the persons dressed in the gray and maroon are mental health officers. When Nurse Brown Lawrence comes up, you can have a close look at her uniform. Nurse practitioner, yes, there we go. So she's a mental health nurse practitioner. So she is someone who would have gone to nursing school, went on and did other training, did specialist mental health training, and then now she is the nurse practitioner who can write prescriptions and do all these fancy things. And that's the leader of the community mental health team. Well, they say that the psychiatrist is the leader, which is me, but most of the time they're the ones on the ground doing all of the work. I just step in from time to time and tweak little things here and there. So we do have a robust community mental health service in Jamaica. And in fact, with regards to reducing stigma, that is something that we encourage and something that we want to be standard. So we want to move mental health care from the hospital setting, Bellevue and Ward 21, Amade Mamadot, and those types of things. We want to reduce the stigma by moving the hospital care. Of course, some persons will still need to be hospitalized when in an active episode. But once you're taking your medication and you're doing fairly well, you can be treated in the community. There's no need for you to come into hospital. The community mental health services can come to your door. So that is a picture of one of our buses that I took when I was at Noel Holmes Hospital some time ago. But yes, it's cut off currently, but you'll see it when you get the slides. Next slide, please. All right, so this is something that my former boss, Dr. Crossman, used to use a lot, and she's drilled it into our heads, and I thank her for that. So this is the World Health Organization Service Organization Pyramid to basically guide us as to how the mental health services should be distributed in the community. So as you see at the bottom, the largest tier in green is self-care. So what does that mean? It means that it's really a matter that you have to take into your hands first and foremost. So you need to take care of yourself. Then there's informal community care. So that's the health centers, and that also falls in line with the primary care services for mental health. Going up, you see that it narrows as it goes further up. So the psychiatric services in hospital, the community mental health services, and then right at the tip top is the specialists area. So really and truly, a lot of self-care and informal community care is where it starts. So we all work together, yes, but we don't have to just jump to the top. We need to start with ourselves, and then it goes up to the top of the pyramid. Next slide, please. Right, so in terms of ideal staffing, what we really would like at each clinic, each hospital, the numbers are difficult to say because it depends on the need and the area and the number of patients and so on. But we need to have psychiatrists in the clinic. We need to have psychologists. We need to have the mental health officers and psychiatric nurses. We need to have the psychiatric nursing aides. We need social workers. We need occupational therapists. And of course, the other administrative and support staff, the persons that handle the medical records and the persons that will, work at the reception area and those types of things. So it's a lot when you think about it. And most times in clinics, we've got maybe the psychiatrist, but as I said, most of the clinics are run by the mental health nurse practitioners. And sometimes a psychologist, because there are very few, we only have 2 for the whole Western region in the public system. And of course, that is not enough for the entire Western Jamaica. Psychiatric nursing aides, they assist the mental health officers and the psychiatric nurse practitioners. Social workers, of course, so those persons that don't have much family support, the social worker comes into play where they direct them to, services such as PATH and Open Arms and places that can assist. Occupational therapists, we don't have one in this region currently. And of course, the other administrative staff, as you can imagine. Next slide, please. So I've included the schedule for the clinics island-wide so that you can have an idea as to when the clinics are. All you need, if you need to come to one of our mental health clinics, is a referral from a doctor. So generally, we say go to your GP, get a referral written, and we will be happy to help. So there are many mental health clinics all across the island, and it has been, if you next slide, if you advance to the next slide for me, you'll see the Southeast region. It tells you the parish, and it tells you where the clinic is and the date that it's held on. Some of these things have changed because, in light of the pandemic and so on, there have been a few changes, but there are numbers that you can always make contact if you need the information. And I will also make myself available through your director if anyone needs to contact me for any reason. Next slide, please. Right, so how do we keep ourselves well mentally? I've put together just a few tips. I'm sure that you all know about these tips already. I don't need to belabor the point, but let's just go through them, because sometimes a reminder is good, and a reminder for myself as well. So I put a picture of myself doing something that I quite enjoy doing, which is watching sunsets on the beach. This is actually a beach in Barbados, so that's me in the middle there. Can't see it very well because the sunset is the more important part, but just to show you that I myself try to do these things. So I'm not just speaking because I've seen this in a book and this is what we need to do, but I try to lead by example as much as possible. So, as was said in my introduction, I absolutely love going to the beach. If I could live there, I would. If I could set up my desk and tell the patients, come to the beach, I'll see you there, that would be ideal. But unfortunately, I've got to dress up in office clothes and look presentable and go into clinics. So, keeping a journal keeping is good, because it gives you an outlet. You can write anything in your journal, anything at all, and no one will judge you. No one will say, how can you think that way, or what have you. It is a judgment-free zone that you can feel free to write down everything that your heart desires. So journaling is important. There are different types of journals. I would specifically at this point like to highlight the gratitude journal, which is a journal in which you would write down things that you're thankful or grateful for. So, for example, today I'm grateful that I was invited here. I'm grateful for the support of my friends and family, particularly my mom, who's watching via YouTube in Barbados. Hi, Mom, love you. And I am grateful for the fact that I was able to have a moment to have some lunch today. Some days I don't, but today was one of the good days. So, something simple. I'm grateful for my wife, I'm grateful for my husband, I'm grateful for my teacher, I'm grateful for my auntie, I'm grateful for the fact that I'm walking and not in a wheelchair. I'm grateful for the fact that although I live in a volatile community, I've been protected, thank God. I'm grateful for the fact that although Beryl passed and some pieces of the zinc off of my roof blew off, I still have a house. And yes, I have the tarpaulin on right now, but I'm grateful that my MP may come and give me a few sheets of zinc to replace it, So it's simple things, simple things. Again, find a confidence booster. So things that make you feel good about yourself. As I said, I enjoy going to the beach and doing nature things. So that's my confidence booster. I feel extremely happy when I'm out in the sun and breathing in fresh air and seeing flowers and saying, wow, God really did a fantastic job. This is beautiful. Again, exercise is important. I know time can prohibit, because oftentimes we're going from one thing to the next. If you're a mother, you're taking care of your children. If you are a father, you're, making the money and trying to make ends meet. You're trying as much as possible to be the disciplinarian. You have men's ministry to come to. It's a whole lot of things going on. But you have to still try. And exercise can be something as simple as walking around the community. But just try to do it briskly so that you get your heart rate up, so that you can, improve your cardiovascular output. Next slide, please. Taking a break from social media. Oh my goodness. Research has shown that social media impacts mental health significantly. Now, what they say is too much of a good thing is never good. Too much of a good thing is never, good. So too much of anything. So you need to limit social media use sometimes. I know it's interesting, but recognize that you can stay there and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and hours can go by before you look at it. It's 9 o'clock and you've been scrolling since 7. You haven't gotten up and had your shower. You haven't done anything that you were supposed to do, but you've been scrolling and reading all sorts of, most of the time, nonsense that really doesn't contribute significantly to your life. So we need to limit our social media exposure from time to time, because some of the things that we see on social media can create anxiety. I don't know if you recall, during the COVID-19 pandemic, they would constantly put the numbers out there, how many thousands of people have been diagnosed with COVID, how many thousands of people have died, all the visuals of the dead bodies being loaded into these refrigerated trucks and all of that. If you're someone that is prone to anxiety, that would give you more anxiety than not. So, you have to limit your social media exposure sometimes. You also need to know when to ask for help. That's important. Always know when it's time to get help. All of us are human. That's what we are, first and foremost. Same flesh, same blood, we're human. So you don't have to feel as though, okay, no, I have to be strong. I can't show any vulnerability. If you feel as though you need help, ask for it, okay? You have to know how to set boundaries, because those people that take, they have no boundaries in asking you for things and taking and draining the life out of you. So you have to know when to set a boundary and draw a line and say, okay, I'm actually going to turn off my phone at 5 p.m. because I am at home now and I need to spend time with my son doing homework, or I need to spend time with my elderly mother, or I need to spend time doing something that is of importance without any interruptions. Forgiveness. Wow, that's a hard one. That's a hard one for me too. I used to be a grudge holder. I'm someone that, you do something to me, I'm keeping that in the back of my mind, and I know, yes, it's you. And when I see you, I don't want to talk to you. I'm staying far from you, and so on and so forth. And again, I'll bring my mother up again. She's always been one to tell me, you have to forgive. It's not for the person, it's for you. Let it go. So a lot of times people wrong us, and we hold on to those things. We hold on to it for dear life. And really and truly, it's worse for you. That person's gone on living their life, they're quite happy, and you're the one that's holding on to the things that need to be released. So forgiveness, research has shown that forgiving people for wrongs that they've done to you is helpful for your mental health. So that's important to know. Next slide, please. Smile. Smiling, laughing, making jokes, that's something that has been clinically proven by research to lower blood pressure. And, it's good for your mental health. When you see people smiling, smiles can be contagious almost. You see someone smiling and you may think, what is it that they're smiling about? And they may bust out in a big laugh, and then you start laughing too. You don't even know what you're laughing about, but it's contagious. So important to smile. Keep a smile on your face. Building relationships and building meaningful relationships. That's good because it helps with loneliness. Loneliness can contribute to anxiety and depression. When you're on your own and you have to sort of navigate life and handle things by yourself, look, face it, God put the family in place for a reason. We were born with a mother and a father, and brothers and sisters in some cases, and cousins and aunties and grandma and grandpa and the whole caveat for a reason, because we're not to be isolated. So it's difficult to be isolated, and during isolation, mental health struggles can be worsened. So it's important to try to build meaningful relationships. And here we are. I've put in a picture of where we are right now, Calvary Baptist. So research has also shown that being a part of a religious group offers protection against mental health challenges. So coming to church on Sundays, coming to sessions such as this, it allows for you to build relationships in the church, because, okay, Sister Brown, who sits next to you all the time, if you don't see Sister Brown come to church, you may pick up the phone and say, but Sister Brown, it's 3 Sundays now, I haven't seen you. Are you okay? And Sister Brown may say, girl, I had COVID, and, I was not feeling well at all. And, you have a nice chat over the phone. And by the time you're finished, everybody feels good. And, you've spoken to Sister Brown, lifted her spirits. There may have been something that had you feeling down, and just reaching out, having a conversation with someone and forgetting your problems for just that 20 minutes really, really, really helps your mental health. All right, acts of kindness. Again, that kind of comes with the forgiveness thing. So giving to others, not thinking about yourself all the time. Sometimes you can give to others. As I said, we look at the man on the side of the road, or woman, let me not be sexist, woman on the side of the road who is sleeping there, or the woman who may be, engaging in activities that we may say, why does she have to do that? Why is it that she's out there selling her body or whatever? But what is her story? Is it that she has 5 children that she's trying to feed? Can we be kind to her and not judge? Can we be kind to the man that's eating out of the garbage can, and maybe if we're buying a box food, buy 2 and stop and give him 1 and say, here, my brother, be blessed? Acts of kindness add to our mental health and allow us to feel good about ourselves, and also feel good about the fact that we're helping other people in a significant way. Next slide, please. So, I promised you that I would give you the resources that you need. So here we have the Ministry of Health's website. I'm just going to read it out for those, because it may be difficult to see. It's quite small here. But it's https, we have a colon, / moh.gov.jm / mental-health-stories. And you can navigate to this link by just going on the mental health website, and there are some pull down bars that you can use to choose mental health, and it will take you to these various links and show you all the initiatives that I've spoken about and so on. The number to call is 1-888-NEW-LIFE. So 888-NEW-LIFE, which is 888-639-5433. So that's the number that you want to save to, should anyone call you and say, I am about to, end it, or I am really not coping with the situation, can you please help me? That's one of the numbers that you will offer. And as I said, I don't mind sharing my number with your chairperson. Next slide, please. And again, this is just the same thing, 8888 New Life, which just is to bring the point home that regardless of whatever you're struggling with, you can call and be directed to where you need to be directed. Next slide, please. And this is my closing slide, which is just saying your mental health is a priority. Just as your health, regular health is, men go and get their prostate checked after 40, women get their mammograms and so on and so forth. Mental health is a priority as well, so you need to make it a priority. So keep that in mind. Bear that in mind the next time you go to the doctor for some type of medical or something. Bear in mind that your mental health is also a priority, because there's no good health without good mental health. Next slide. And that's just me saying thank you so much for listening to me going on and on and on about something that's very passionate. About something that I am very passionate about. So thank you so much for having me. I really thank you. Thank you so much. I really hope that I have in some way made you think about mental health differently. And I hope that you will go and share what you have learned with people, because knowledge is power, and without sharing your knowledge, it doesn't make sense. You have this wealth of knowledge. You know, my professors at the university would always say, yes, my brain is full of a whole lot of information, but I'm sharing it with you guys so that you can pass it on to other people, and they will pass it on to other people, so that we can all be educated. So I hope that this won't stay with you, or it won't stay in your little notebook that you've written. I hope that you will share it and speak to someone about it. And again, as I said, I'm always available. If you need me to come and give any other talks, I'm willing, excited, and hopefully will be able to come whenever it's scheduled. And again, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. So thank you. I hope it was beneficial. Thank you so much. All the best.
We want to thank Dr. Janine Morris for such an informative presentation, for sharing some important tips with us on how to maintain our mental health, as well as highlighting some of the initiatives that are taken by the Ministry of Health to ensure the mental wellness of our people. And most importantly, reminding us that mental health is a priority. We will now enter in our question and answer session. But before we do, let me invite to the platform Dr. Charmaine Garwood, psychologist and director of the Child, Adolescent, and Adult Research Evaluation Services, CARES, and Mrs. Takia Brown Lawrence, mental health nurse practitioner from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Let's welcome them. This section will be conducted by Deacon Patricia Harris, and she will do the honors of formally introducing these ladies.
Thank you so much, Savia. Good evening, everyone. Online, thank you for joining us. We have here with us three phenomenal women who are here to talk to us about our mental health, to field our questions, and to help us to further understand the whole rush about our mental health. First of all, I really liked the nugget that Dr. Morris left with us. Your mental health is a priority, and I want to add top. All right, let me come this side. Better? All right, so we have with us three ladies. We have Dr. Charmaine Garwood. She is a trauma-informed psychologist who has worked with families in the California region for 10 years, focusing mainly on parent-child interaction, family dynamics, addiction, and pain management. She returned to Jamaica late 2016 and now serves as the clinical director of child, adolescents, and adult research evaluation and services, situated at the Icon Mall in Fairview. Dr. Johnson Garwood was trained as a teacher, guidance counselor at Sam Sharp Teachers College. She achieved her first degree in psychology at the University of Miami, Coral Gables, USA. She then attained a master's degree in human resource management from the Florida International University and a master's degree in general psychology from California School of Professional Psychology. She currently holds 2 doctoral degrees, one in clinical psychology and the other in industrial organizational psychology from California School of Professional Psychology. She has served in higher education in Jamaica for more than 20 years, lecturing in psychology and business management at the UWI, School of Continuing Studies, the Northern Caribbean University, and University College of the Caribbean. She actively engages in research, and her major work focuses on complex trauma, adolescent behavioral problems, and resiliency in children exposed to chronic violence. She is an advocate for women. Hence, she supports young women in attaining their high school and college degrees. She is the proud mother, and I'm going to read it as I have it here. She is a proud mother of 2 adult men and the foster mother of 2 young ladies. Let's welcome Dr. Garwood. Our second panelist, we just heard quite a mouthful from her, Dr. Janine Morris. She is the Chief Psychiatrist for the Western Regional Health Authority. Let us make her welcome. Our third panelist, Mrs. Takia Brown Lawrence. She's a registered nurse, a registered midwife, a mental health nurse, who has obtained a Master's of Science in Nursing as a mental health psychiatric nurse practitioner. She is a child of God, a wife, and a mother to 4, 2 young adults, 1 adolescent, and a school-aged child. Currently, she works at St. James Public Health Services since 2010. As a mental health psychiatric nurse practitioner. She coordinates the community mental health service of St. James. This includes management of adult, children, and adolescents with mental health issues. Also, she provides health information on how to help persons to prevent mental illness and how to maintain mental wellness. She is also the Children and Adolescent Ministries Director at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Kings, of which she is a board member. She loves to teach, she loves to sleep, and she loves to play netball. Let's make our panelists welcome. I'm going to give each panelist just about 2 minutes to give a brief intro. We'll start with Dr. Garwood.
Okay. Good evening, or maybe I should say good night, because I look at my phone a couple minutes ago and it looked like it was after 7. Yeah, and after 8. Okay, so in the next couple of minutes, I'll get some reminder on my phone that it is bedtime, because my mental health is very important. So there's something on my phone that reminds me that it's bedtime at 9 o'clock. I'm very happy to be here today. And anywhere there's a conversation about mental health, that's a place that I need to be, because I am so excited that for the first time in my lifetime, people are paying attention to mental health, and the stigma that used to be attached to it is no longer there. Most of my clients are very, very progressive people. People who understand that they need to know enough about themselves to become the best version of themselves. So mental health is not about you're going crazy or something wrong with you, or it used to be a curse word. No, mental health is something that people are gravitating towards. If we look and see what's happening in Hollywood and all over the United States, some of the most progressive people are chanting mental health. Because if you don't have that mental health, you are a subpar human. So I thank you for coming out, and those who are in social media land listening, I'm happy you're listening. I'm happy that you spend this time to be here, because you are going to be the recipient of something that will make your life better tonight. I am convinced.
Oh, I think I've spoken quite a bit, so I'll pass the mic on to Nurse Brown Lawrence.
Okay, thank you. And I must say good night also. Yes, just as it says, I love to sleep. It's joining it better. Good. Okay, when I was given this opportunity to be a part of this panel, somehow I was just asked, would you like to be a part? And I just said yes. I agreed, because this is how we can teach others, how we can help others to be aware of mental illness, and not mental illness, mental well-being. Because when we are able to make persons aware of what is happening in this circle, this is how the stigma will be reduced. And I do not shy away from such an offer where I can educate others, because it makes my job even easier when the stigma is very low. And so when I said yes, I remember saying yes, and I thought I looked at the date, and the date said something like the 31st or something like that, and I was there. But when I was called today to be reminded, and then towards the end, Xavier mentioned, do not park on the outside, so see you later. Park on the inside. I'm like, see you later? It's really later? And when I went back and I looked at the thing, I said, oh yes, it's today and not next week. So I almost missed it. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I love that reminder. And I know that being here will help others. It will help. I often said to persons that I can't do it alone. I love to have some ambassadors who will be able to take the message to others, because we can't do it alone. And I'm happy for this opportunity where I'll be able to share with others so that they can help me.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Mrs. Brown Lawrence. You're in the communities, and so you would have experienced a lot. You're like a first responder. Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct.
Right. Now, when you come across members of the public who probably lament that, how can I maintain good mental health when I cannot even find the resources to feed my family and take care of their needs? How do you manage these situations?
Well, we have to be passionate about persons' needs, because we do realize that if persons' needs are not adequately met, this can also lead to the various symptoms that person will experience as it relates to mental illness. So like everything else, we must address persons' needs. So on a monthly basis, a daily basis, sometimes we are mental health nurses, but we are seen to others like just about to fill the need. You're going out there, you have to remember that this person doesn't have a meal. So sometimes we have to pull from our pocket to pack a bag to take with us, to live with that person, because it's not just about giving the treatment. So we are actively, sometimes, I'll tell you, sometimes it makes me a beggar. And I am not ashamed to say that, because I am begging for others to be able to help them. Because you can't be going and just taking medication that the government provide and realizing that there's a need and not assist. Sometimes it may not be for the person who you're treating, but it may be for a family member. What if there's a child in that home that needs to be enrolled in a school? My duty also is to assist. Because whatever is causing you any mental distress is going to impact you negatively on the outcome. So I want to ensure that my clients are doing well. And if it means to go and beg to get that extra money, to get those books for that child, or the food, so yes, I will beg to ensure that their needs are satisfied, and then I'll present the medication and the psychotherapy that may be needed to get them well.
Thank you very much. Do you find that these limitations restrict them from following through with their treatment plans?
Most definitely. And say, for example, let me put it back in a church setting. So you're sent out to minister to persons, right? And you're going out to minister, and you recognize a need. You're not going to leave that need behind and say that my sole purpose is to minister. So I'm here to minister to your soul. No, we have to minister to the whole being. So if their needs are not being satisfied adequately, oh yes, they will fall through the cracks. Because as Jamaicans, let me tell you, I don't know where we get this from, but we don't take pills on hungry stomach. Am I correct? No, it doesn't matter what is written on the package. It doesn't matter what this pharmacist said to you. I have to eat to take my medication. So if I don't have food, I'm not going to take that medication. So yes, it will cause persons to relapse. So we have to make sure that their needs are met and assist them. So this is where the various social services or the various organization comes in. So I will be knowledgeable then of where to send persons for help, or where to call to say, go there to help X, because what? Because if those needs are not met, it doesn't matter. They're not going to be well. So you can't just rely on medication alone. So we need to ensure that the whole person is being catered to. And that is what we do within the community. And also help others to point out to them that you need to help this person also. It may be family members, it may be your church. I might turn up here and tell her that I need some help for X, Y, Z. Because, yes, right.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to shift a little bit. We have been, mental health is a big cloud right now that is affecting everybody at every level. And one of the things that cannot escape us is the increase or the amount of accidents that occur on a daily basis. We have a lot of frontline workers, and I'm going to name just 3, maybe 4 for now. There are others. You have the firefighters who constantly have to be reporting to road accidents, having to cut in people out of their cars, and sometimes it's removing corpse, not live people. You have the police officers, and you have the doctors who has to pronounce and the nurses who have to do all that other work. And what systems, Dr. Garwood, are in place to really engage and manage, assist these persons in managing their mental health?
I think the best person to ask would be the person in charge.
Well, definitely Dr. Garwood is
hold
one
on, before I even hand over to you, this is something I come up against in my practice every single day. Not just firefighters, police, and you have even the judges that have to preside over cases. I have a client who is a judge, and she came to me and she was telling me a story. And when she finished, I'm the psychologist, and I was traumatized by this story, just listening to her. And I am trained to have this impermeable mental boundary where I can see a client, and when the client walks through the door, I forget the case until the client come back in. We are trained like that. But in this case, I could hardly sleep. And I'm saying to myself, I don't have to prosecute that case. And these people have to pay out of pocket for therapy, which is very, very expensive. And I think the government should do better in taking care of some of our, like the firefighters, the soldiers, the police. They are actually being traumatized, and they develop PTSD, having to look at some of the things that they have to see every day, and they can't unsee it. And I do believe that our system should take better care of this population.
Correct. Thank you. Dr. Morris?
So I will comment and say that there is a dearth definitely in that area. We do need people to recognize that these are a population that are vulnerable to post-traumatic stress disorder. And we already don't have enough of these highly trained individuals. So imagine now if the workforce is impacted by them being out because of, being traumatized and having to deal with these things. So that is definitely an area that the government needs to have a look at. I'm glad that it was raised in this setting. And the next time I meet with, the stakeholders and so on, that's something that we definitely need to raise. So there's an inadequacy. We don't have any of those specific services in place. There are employee assistant programs which persons can go to in government settings to get assistance. But as you can imagine, it's usually one psychologist for an entire organization of, thousands or hundreds of people. And sometimes you have to wait really long to speak to the psychologist, So we definitely do need to look at that. That's an area that is lacking.
Well, I must say that's disappointing that we have nothing in place that we can speak of for these members of our community who stand in the front for us. And yes, the government needs to do something about it real fast. I just want to invite others who are here. If you have a question, you have a statement you'd like to share, there's a microphone right in the aisle. I invite you to use the microphone and we will take your question.
Good night, everyone. And welcome, ladies. I must say that it has enlightened us, especially Dr. Morris's words of encouragement and explaining to us what are all the parameters and all the things that we need to know about mental health. Well, my question tonight is a follow-up to what Deacon Harris has said. I can recall last year at our harvest, a young gentleman was here visiting. He dressed very well. He has his sneakers in his hands, and we had a harvest where we had our displays and everything up there. And he walked in from outside, and everybody was watching him. And he went and took a banana, he took an apple, he took a mango, and he was well dressed. So we thought he came to church. And from based on what we saw, he was displaying. We realized that, well, then he was mentally challenged, or he had some depression or something. And one of our church, one of the ushers, male, went and spoke with him and sit with him. But in a few minutes after, or seconds after, he get up. And we had the praise and worship team singing up there. And he was heading towards the up on the altar there. So another brother had to go and escort him down. Well, we called the services at the Cornwall Regional Office. There was also a nurse here. She went on her phone and was trying to make contact with the hospital. But that was to no avail, because there was nobody, no vehicle, no nothing, right? And then, somebody suggested, why not we call the police? Now, another member of the church said, oh, no. She was familiar with the cognizant of how the police situation is. Don't call them, because they're going to treat him like a criminal. So I'm asking this question to Dr. Morris now. Do the police plays an integral role in training? Do they get the training how to deal with mental health people? Right. Because time and time again, we see them on the streets, and we see how, whenever they do anything, how the police treat them very aggressively. Sometimes they even took their life. Yes. Yeah. So, to you, ma'am, right, what type of training does the police get where mental illness is concerned?
Right. I want to thank you for that question, and that is an excellent question. So the police are supposed to assist the mental health team and the mental health services in getting anyone who is mentally unwell to a facility where they can be assessed and treated. We have had extensive discussions with the commissioner of police and so on, and the police have had, I would say, a basic level of mental health training exposure. It needs to be more in depth. It needs to be, I guess, perhaps for a longer period. But we do engage the police from time to time in assisting with transporting clients to a healthcare facility. Again, I will say that people are people, you're not born a policeman, so you're a human first, and then you train and become a policeman. And we all have different personalities. So sometimes you may come across someone who may say, again, may stigmatize the mentally ill because they're not really aware of the various illnesses and how things work, or They may be trigger happy because they're a policeman and they're armed, so, you know, I have my firearm, so anyhow he comes close to me, I'm going to shoot. And these are things that we need to try to get away from, because most of the time people talk about the mentally ill being violent, and we see a lot of horror stories in the news about mentally ill man kills mother, or mentally ill man injured how many other people. But the research has shown that the mentally ill are more likely to have violent acts occur to them than they do commit violent acts. You know, the media sensationalizes a lot of things. So oftentimes we don't talk about the times that the mentally ill are attacked by other people and so on. But that's just my plug for decreasing stigma. But to be honest, they do have some police officers that they cooperate with us quite well. And it's a matter of personality. Some of the officers say, can't bother with that, and some are really encouraging and, you know, will be looking out for mentally ill patients. So it's a difficult one. It's difficult. It's something that we're trying to address, though, because, as I said, we do engage the police force as one of the stakeholders quite often. And I'm sure that Nurse Brown Lawrence can add, because she would be the one on the ground engaging with the police officers when she gets a crisis call. So I'm not sure if you have something you can add.
Most definitely, I would like to contribute to that question. Since the whole matter as it relates to the institutionalization of persons with mental illness, it is the hope that the community also would be able to be in a state to assist persons who are mentally unwell and not be so fearful. However, that has gone on, and yes, the community might be playing catch up. So with that story that you mentioned with that man, it would have been my desire that the church, maybe the deacons or some other brethren here, would have been able to say, let's take him up to Corner Regional Hospital, which is less than 5 minutes away.
That was done after service.
Yeah, I'm getting, right.
That was done.
So, very well, because we know when you are sick, the church is also seen as an hospital. So you will see persons who are mentally ill coming to your church, because they are expecting the church to deal with them differently from the outside. Yeah. Very well. So from time to time, you will have issues, you will have things like this. So I'm happy to know that the church was also able to take him there. Yes. But when you also mentioned that the point when you're saying call the police, but somebody say no, that's also another myth. Because most times when the police assisted us, our client will come willingly. There are certain situations that we will not address or will not respond to without the assistance of the police. For example, if the person who is mentally unwell has a weapon, we have to get the police with us, because we are going to assist someone with just our hands, mouth, just by talking. But if you have a weapon, I don't have anything to match that. So with that, we'll have to ask the police to assist us. So we'll not be able to go alone. And the majority of the time, once the police is there, they will come with us willingly. And some will even say that I'd rather the police take me. So sometimes we have that myth that they will respond negatively to the police. And the police also will have that myth that once I have a weapon, they're going to respond to me negatively. So they will also pull back. There are times they'll pull back and say, no, I do not have that training. But from my experience, I've seen most of the time where the persons who is suffering from the mental illness willingly attend or just cooperate with us because of the police's presence. So there's that need where both of us can work together.
So you're saying that the police force are trained in executing, doing jobs where mental health is concerned. They have training in mental health.
And if I they may not be adequately trained. However, for those who are willing, they do get the positive response at times. If I may also add, for community mental health service, yes, we do not have all the resources that we need. And there are times when the call comes to us and we don't have the vehicle, just as you mentioned, and we might have to say, call the police, because they too can assist in taking the person to the facility where they can be assisted. So once the police, you have a willing officers, yes, they can also do that. But some, again, because of the fear and the stigma, may tell you that, no, I am not trained, and withhold the help that they can give.
Because we, the populace, sometimes it's hard for us to distinguish between a street person and a mentally ill person, you know? Anyway, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brother Malcolm. Sister Sudan?
Good evening, everyone. In Dr. Morris' presentation, she indicated that there are over 116 mental health facilities in the island. But one of my concerns is that when you go to the clinics, right, the environment. So I'm happy that persons are more aware that somebody with mental illness is not just somebody on the road that is dirty, a well-dressed person going to work every day, the executive, the judge, everybody is affected. And so there are persons that are suffering because of mental health illnesses, and they're not able to go into a private practice, but walking into a public health facility, just the environment and just how it is set up, like literally persons would see, for example, if I should go there, people would say, oh, but she are mad, because of how it's just the environment, the aesthetic, and how it's done, because you have a mixture of, okay, the persons that don't look so clean, or, you know, the ones that has to be restrained. And so once someone sees you in that environment, they're going to say, okay, but she are mad. Are there any plans to enhance those environments, to make them more welcoming, to remove the stigma, to make it less depressing? Because to me, it is somewhat depressing, just sitting around in an environment with so many people going through the same thing. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it helps.
Thank you, Sudan.
I will just start and let Nurse Brown Lawrence finish. Yes, we recognize that some of the facilities are definitely not up to par. Sometimes I go into some clinics and some places that will remain unnamed because this is being recorded, that I feel like crying, literally, at the state of how the mentally ill patients are treated in those areas, you know. And it's our job to advocate for that change to be made. So yes, the policymakers are aware of the situation, and we are trying to make the changes that we need to make. Again, things like that take money, but we do try as best as possible to make the facilities as pleasant as we can. In some instances, and I will use one of the hospitals that I work at. So for example, Cornwall Regional Hospital, as you're aware, we had a sick building, so everyone had to move out of the building. So we're currently working in circumstances that are not so ideal. So things may not be up to par and not be how they should be, but rest assured that there are things happening behind the scenes to make those changes. But as I said, I myself, I'm a psychiatrist, And there are some places that I go to see patients that I am saying, but no, this cannot be. And then, you know, I pick up my phone and I call someone, or I put pen to paper and I write a letter and I say, you know, we can't continue like this. So this type of advocacy, just as you have, and you know, you making that point, there may be someone on the Zoom call or on YouTube watching that is in a position to make a change, or there may be some billionaire that says, okay, let me contribute $2.5 million US to the restoration of wherever that needs to be restored with regards to mental health. So the fact that we're talking about this is good, and this is what we need. We need not shy away from things, you know, and try to cover up and say, oh, you know, don't say that or what have you. It's a fact. Some of the facilities are not up to par, and we fight and we fight and we fight as much as we can and advocate to make changes. And sometimes it takes talking until you have no voice. Sometimes it takes screaming and shouting. Sometimes it takes barging into a meeting and saying, look, listen, this is the case and this is what we need, and we're not leaving until we get it. So, you know, we definitely are using our voices as much as possible to advocate for change. And I'm sure that Nurse Brown Lawrence can add to that.
Okay, definitely. Where we are heading is integration, where we integrate mental health right across the health services. So for example, in primary care, you're suffering from a mental health issue and you need mental health care. You should be able to walk in any of the health centers and speak to the doctors who are there, because the way forward where we are now is looking at what we call mental health gap training, where the doctors, where all the clinicians should be trained to be able to manage persons with simple mental health issues. So you're visiting, say, Catherine Hall Health Center, for example, just calling a name, and you're suffering from depression based on what Dr. Morris just pointed out to you. You might figure that, okay, I have some of these symptoms, I want to be checked out. You don't have to be thinking, you just turn up to one of the primary health care, the health centers, see the doctor, speak with the doctor, and it is the hope that this doctor can maybe start some treatment, start something with you to be able to help you. So going into any space, you're not feeling as if I am going around a corner where it doesn't look so nice because to get treatment for my mental health. No. And this is what is happening. So I'm speaking for community mental health services. So if we are seeing something else happening, we are there also as advocates to say, LO, we are not going around any corner to see any client, just as how you're seeing a client for diabetes or high blood pressure at the front here, yes. So how it is set up in the community, you may have different days, but it's the same space that we are sharing. And that will make it even easier for persons to want to come in and see us. And that is where we want to go with mental health management, so that persons don't think that I am going to be in a space that is less than desirable because I have a mental illness. And with sometimes the stigma may come from within, where doctors are, maybe some clinician may be saying, I don't want to see anybody with mental illness because I'm fearful that things, no. So we want them to be all educated that you can manage persons with a mental illness or a mental health issue, as was stated by Dr. Morris here, that sometimes it's just that fear that person have and may cause them not to want to carry out their duties. So the stigma is not just out there. It may be well within our health services, but there are things in place to get that out. So where we are now, persons can step in to any health center, speak with a doctor, and then be given the referral to get the necessary help. Or they may be able to start with consultation, whether consulting with myself or us consulting with a psychiatrist for persons to get help. So I don't want anybody out there to think that there's not a space where I can turn up because I am feeling unwell mentally. And person is going to look at me and say, oh, she's going around that corner. That's not what is happening in primary health care.
Thank you.
So it's an ongoing process. We're getting there.
All right, we'll take the final question from Sister Marjorie.
Good evening. I would like you to explain to me the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Because if I need to see somebody, who do I go to? Psychiatrist or psychologist?
So that's a very good question, and people often interchange the terminologies and don't understand. But a psychiatrist is a physician, a medical doctor that has been through medical school and done training to become a doctor, and then they specialize in psychiatry. So that person is a doctor. Fair enough, Dr. Garwood is a doctor as well, but that's because she's got a doctorate in her area of psychology. So she is not a medical doctor, but, you know, so the difference is that the psychiatrist is a medical doctor and the psychologist is someone who has immersed themselves in a body of psychological training. The psychiatrist can prescribe medication. The psychologist does not have prescribing privileges, but generally we cannot work without each other. Most of the patients that I have are also being seen by a psychologist, and I get a lot of referrals from psychologists that say, okay, well, doc, this is above me. I think they may need some medication, so you may need to step in. So we cannot work without each other. We are working together very closely, and you know, that's the basic difference. I see Dr. Garwood has raised her mic, so she has something to add. So
yeah, one of the major difference between, like, when my clients, when you see a client, you're looking for mental diseases.
Correct.
That you have to do an intervention.
Correct.
You have to prescribe something to change that brain chemistry.
Correct.
A psychologist studies human behavior at a deeper level. So I actually, like when I'm sitting here with the panel and the focus is on the mentally unwell, in my area, I'm seeing people who are not just, like, if they are having psychosis, I can't talk to them. I need a brain I can relate to. And so I am going to be sending that person to Dr. Morris.
Right.
When you come to me, you have a working brain, and you need to understand, why is it that I am doing this? Why is it I have difficulty relating to my husband? Why is it that I am triggered so easily? Why is it that I withdraw when I find that I am when I am under threat? So I'm looking at traumas in your life that change your personality, and I'm helping you to kind of reprogram your mind so that you can make better decisions for your well-being. So that's the principle. So I spend like 50 minutes with each client, whereas you could diagnose somebody in 10 minutes, prescribe, and send them on their way. I am helping you with self-understanding.
Yes, yes.
So that's the difference, the major difference between the psychiatrist and the psychologist. So a lot of my clients are very well healthy people, have their businesses, doing well in life, but most time they have relationship issue, they have dysregulated sense of self, they triggered easily, they blow off easily, they can't relate in a healthy way. Sometimes they can't relate well with their staff, and I am helping them to understand the dynamics in the human relation to let them become a better version of themselves.
So you have a coach and she doesn't have a coach. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, you know, I love the question that, what's her name? The young lady asks about the environment for the mental wellness. When I came to Jamaica in 2016, I went into the hospital facility. I was at G-West. And I recognized that, you know what, my clients are not going to get well here. You walk in, there is a bed that sometimes even trigger the client, because the client is going to the hospital with doctors, with stethoscope, people dying, and it's a trigger for them. So they're already getting sicker by going into that environment. And in my clinic, and this is something I do specifically, my clients don't come and wait. Nobody comes and wait. I have a strict time that they come. If I tell you your time is 9 o'clock, at 9 o'clock you're sitting in my chair. You're in an air-conditioned office. You don't see nothing that look medical. Everything there is like a lounge. If I have like a And my clients, if they are so distressed after I see them, they have a meditation room that they can just go in and relax and just meditate and listen to rainfalls or wind or ocean or something. Because that is what it takes to get you to a place where you even have self-respect.
Yeah.
It is so true.
Thank you for that.
And I'm not, well, I'm a cheap psychologist now because my price has not been raised for several years. But my clients come every single week and they pay because they like what they're getting. So if you have if you are mentally challenged or you're dysregulated and you have an environment that cater to your well-being, the client will come and they will pay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
But wait, do you have a coach?
I do have a coach. I have 2 coaches.
2 coaches, wow, okay.
Well, with a setting like that, and with prices that are agreeable to our economy, because we would have heard that economic situations, they do contribute to the deterioration in mental health. Persons can't afford it, some insurances won't cover it. So it's nice to know, Dr. Garwood, that your prices have remained
feasible.
I like that word.
And the fact that your clients continue to honor their appointments, it means that we are having a healthier mental health
outlook
community. Isn't that right?
Definitely.
Right. Well, we want to thank our panelists very much for such an interactive engagement, and want to thank those who have participated in the questions and your comments, those online who are watching. We thank you so much. At this time, I'm handing back over to you, Tavia.
Thanks, Deacon Harris, Patricia Harris. So, as we had mentioned before, this is our first seminar in a series of quarterly seminars that we intend to have. We will continue with our next seminar on October 10th. That's when we recognize Mental Health Awareness Day.
I was just about to say, that's a good day.
Yes, yes, yes.
Did you choose that on purpose, or did it just fall there?
It was all coincidental. It was a Thursday in the month.
See how God works. Okay, awesome.
Amen. So for this seminar, we intend to look at, and Dr. Morris, you touched on some of those, proactive approaches that can be taken to maintain good mental health. And so we'll be looking at increasing your awareness, some lifestyle changes, some coping skills, and I'm sure Dr. Garwood could speak some more about that. Tell you how she manage our coach, sorry, so our coach, yes. And seeking early intervention. We will continue in 2025, so that would be our final seminar for 2024, but we will continue in 2025 We again want to take a deeper look at anxiety. You touched on that, Dr. Morris, but we want to look on anxiety. We want to look on levels of anxiety that is considered normal and what levels are in need of intervention and care. We also want to look at low mood and depression, do a deep dive on those two topics. Again, what extent is considered normal and what levels are in need of intervention and care. Other topics we intend to explore are adverse childhood experiences and the impact on adult mental health. We want to speak again on parenting in relation to children and adolescents' mental health. We have seen where our children, teenagers, we've seen, I think, an uptick in suicide, the suicide rate or the numbers. And we want to be speaking some more about that, as well as trauma and post-traumatic stress syndrome. So to keep abreast of our future seminars, we encourage you to follow us on our pages, Facebook and Instagram at Calvary Baptist JA. There we'll be posting, what we intend to do and what we'll be doing within the church as it relates to mental health. Before I hand over to Deacon Clive Harris, who he'll be doing our expressions of appreciation and to close the evening's proceeding, I use this opportunity to invite you to our annual Emancipation Lecture and Culture Presentation that we'll be having this Sunday at 4 p.m. Our guest lecturer will be Dr. Patrick Prendergast. He's the campus director of the UWI Mona Western Campus. And he will be speaking on the theme, None But Ourselves, Peace, Justice, and Emancipation in Our Communities. It was a pleasure being your chairperson for the evening, and we thank you all for attending, and I am looking forward to see the faces again on the 10th of October. Deacon Clive?
We started in the evening, now it's, I must say, good night, everybody. So the conversations has begun. Let the conversation continue. Tavia, you've really upped the conversation. First, we were having tips on Sunday morning. Now we have had a fulsome conversation, yes? And a very overarching set of expressions regarding mental wellness. I had about 3 questions, but you cut me off before I could, so I will leave them until the next conversation takes place. We're happy as a church that this evening, in Live and Living Colors, you have afforded us the opportunity to be more than just spiritual enablers, partners to the community at large, but taking our responsibility far, right across the human experience. And Mrs. Lawrence Brown, Dr. Morris, Dr. Garwood, we are very grateful for your time and your expertise in sharing. To Tavia, the team that put this together, the multimedia, Mrs. Harris, Mrs. Hall, who helped us with the questions and introductions, we are grateful. And to all of you, online and in person, who made this a very great conversation to start and one to continue. So as I opened, my apology, I did not bring you the greetings of Reverend Michael Shimmy, who couldn't be here, but asked me to stand in the gap. So the conversation has begun. Rise with me and let us continue the conversation. Stand with me for the benediction, please. And before we close, of course, before you stand, we'll ask Dr. Morris, as we make our expressions here.
My, thank you so much. I didn't expect all of this. This isn't necessary, but thank you. I appreciate it greatly. As someone who doesn't cook, I'll eat everything in here.
You take one picture at the end, yeah. Mrs. Lawrence Brown, you may stand to receive, please. Dr. Garwood.
I'm not going to say like Dr. Morris. It's not necessary because I am a Jamaican and I just love food. I'm being true to myself.
Great. Well, you're sitting with your basket. I won't ask you to stand again. Rest of you, could you stand with me, please? As we seek the blessing of Almighty God, may you go with us, God the Father, go with us, God the Son, go with us, God the Holy Spirit. As we say thanks for having us here this evening. And we hope, Lord, that what we would have learned would take this into our community at large, into our family, oh Father, Lord, into our home and place of work. Thank you once more. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Good night, everyone.
Shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over it.